Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to do one of my favorite and least favorite videos of the year. Favorite because this is such a great video to look back on, and least favorite because it is a very much work to film and to edit, and so I hope you enjoy watching it. In today's video I will talk about all the books that I read in 2025, and when I say all the books, I mean 131 books, because that is the amount of books I have read last year. Now, obviously, to keep things short, I won't talk about every single book in detail, but I will give you a ranking. So we're going to start off with my least favorite book of the year, and we'll work our way up to my favorite books of the year. And those are the ones I will actually talk about a little bit more. And I will also try to rank my favorite books. So that is going to be a challenge, I'm sure. But for now, let's talk about my least favorite book of the year. And I don't want to talk about this one too much, because for most of you this is probably not very interesting, because this is a German book and I don't think it has been translated. It is called Die Unglückseligen by Thea Dorn. I got gifted this book many years ago and I never actually started reading it because I knew I wouldn't like it. But then I had my whole TBR reduction scheme this year, so this one also was read. I gave this one 1.5 stars and I really didn't like it. We follow a biologist who is trying to figure out a way so that humans can live forever. So she's looking for immortality. She's a German, but she works in the US, and while she's there, she meets a man who has seemingly lived for hundreds of years already, and so she's trying to figure out his genes to know why he can live for so long. However, then it's just madness. It's just madness. The characters are terrible. I hated the characters. I hated the writing style. The whole idea of immortality is very unappealing to me, and so unfortunately I hated this book. So this was the only book I gave a 1.5 stars in the year of 2025, and also in a long time, like multiple years, I haven't rated a book this low. So now we're moving on with the 2-star books, and I won't say like a ton about these, but these are still kind of like my worst books of the year. We have Love Saves the Day by Gwen Cooper. This is supposed to be a cute cat book. However, it's actually not. It was like terrible. I hated the people in this book and it wasn't cute. And what they did to the poor cat, I hated it. 2 stars. We have I Love You, Fräulein Lena. This one was a gift and also kind of like a mix-up thing, because my best friend got me a book, then I realized it was the second book in a series, and so she got me this one, which is the first book in the series as well. This book was terrible. This is set after the Second World War in Germany, in the north of Germany, and we are following a girl or 2 girls or something who had to flee from where they lived because of the end of the war. And it's about like how badly they were treated, which, yeah, I get it. It wasn't great, but you still started a war. And then the ending of this was just so terrible. It was so terrible. I hated it. And then the last book I finished this year also made it to my worst books list, and that is Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult. This is a pandemic book. It's a COVID book, and it was just bad. This has a twist that is just horrible. I hated it. I think that in general the writing wasn't like super terrible, but the whole story and the characters, I could not. On the surface, this is about a woman who lives in New York. Then the pandemic hits. She wanted to go to the Galapagos Islands with her partner. She thinks she will propose there. However, he is a doctor, so he stays behind and she goes to the Galapagos Islands on her own. Bad. It's just bad. And with that, we have made it out of my worst books, and now we're going to talk about the books. Just very quickly, I will rank them. So with 2.5 stars, we have Die Weiße Maasai by Corinne Hofmann. This is also the first book in the series, and I will DNF that series. And the 120 Days of Sodom by Marquis de Sade. This is the last book I will try to read from this author. And we have made it to our 3-star books. The first one is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, a book of the Mistborn Era 1 series. Then we have You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. Lass uns tanzen, Fräulein Lena by Hannah Aden. This is the second book in the duology and the finale. Call Your Daughter Home by Deb Spera. Ein weites Feld by Günter Grass. This was my nemesis. The Secret Years by Judith Lennox. and 3 Cups of Tea by Craig Mortensen and David Oliver Rellin. So now the 3.5 star books. We have The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 3 in Mistborn Era 1 and the final book. Afterlives by Abdulrazak Gurna. The Cybernetic Tea Shop by Meredith Katz. This is just a tiny novella. We Need New Names by No Violet Bulavayo. 8 Mountains by Paolo Cognetti. The Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons. Cheese Sweet Home Volume 9. Butter by Asako Yutsuki. They Drown Our Daughters by Katrina Monroe. I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me by Jemison Shea. Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. House Party Murder Rap by Sonia Perrin. Lou Andreas Salome by Kerstin Decker. Murder on the Prowl by Rita Mae Brown and Sneaky Pie Brown. This is a book in a cozy mystery series. Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This is a sequel to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This is the first book in a quartet, but I have DNF'd this series. Universality by Natasha Brown. My Friends by Frederick Buckman. Cheese Sweet Home Volume 10 by Konami Kanata. This is a very long middle grade manga series. The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. Rewitched by Lucy Jane Woods. The Collected Fairy Tales and Stories by Oscar Wilde. This is a German edition and it was a mixed bag. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. Katzen lieben Weihnachten, a short story collection edited by Gestine Dammel. A Christmas Ghost Story by Kim Newman. Cozy for the Holidays by Liz Maverick. Christmas Ever After by Michelle Stimson. The Christmas Tree Murders by Andrea Hicks. Now we made it to the 4-star books, the biggest category. This is almost 50 books, so bear with me. A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. The Haunting of Tramcar 015 by Pete Jelly Clark. Burn Down, Rise Up by Vincent Tirado. The Trees by Percival Everett. Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Bare Bones by Katie Rikes. This is a book in the Temperance Brennan series. Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hauptmann. Into the Riverlands by Niveau. This is in the Singing Hills cycle. They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is the first book in the series. Black Sun, Fevered Star, and Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the complete trilogy. The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. The Ally of Law by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in Mistborn Era 2. Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. This is the second book in this trilogy. Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls by Elena Favilli and Francesca Cavallo. The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water by San Zhou. The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. My Contrary Mary by Cynthia Hand, Jody Meadows and Brody Ashton. Links wo das Herz ist by Leonard Frank. This is kind of a German classic. Race the Sands by Sarah Beth Durst. Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. This is the final book in the trilogy. Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. Blood, Water, Paint by Joy McCullough. A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. Pictures from Italy by Charles Dickens. Piranesi by Susanna Clark. Somadina by Akweke Emesi. The Lamb by Lucy Rose. Never Whistle at Night, edited by Shane Hawke and Theodore C. Van Elst Jr. The Bone Witch by Winter Pecco. This is the first book in the series. A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Lucy Undying by Kirsten White. Starve Acre by Andrew Michael Hurley. Monstrous Volume 8, this was a reread. And Monstrous Volume 9 by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, both in the Monstrous comic book series. Mort by Terry Pratchett, this is a Discworld novel. The Women's History of the Modern World by Rosalind Miles. The Social Psychology of Prejudice by John Duckett. Cooking Up a Christmas Storm by Amelia Berry. Booked for the Holidays by Liz Maverick. Under the Mistletoe with You by Lizzie Huxley Jones. The Grimm's Fairy Tales Volume 1 by the Brothers Grimm. And Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. This is the second book in the Simon Snow series, and this was a reread. So all of these 4-star books are already books I would recommend you read. However, now we're talking about 4.5-star books, so these I would highly recommend you read. Fool's Errand by Robin Hobb, the first book in the Tawny Man trilogy. The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This was a reread, but my first time reading it in English in this very fancy edition. The Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in the Tawny Man trilogy. The Good House by Tanana Reef Dew. Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby. James by Percival Everett. Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jesse Q. Sutanto. This is the first book in a duology so far. The Liar's Knot by M.A. Carrick. This is the second book in this trilogy. Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man by Jesse Q. Sutanto. This is the second book and so far the finale to this little duology. Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor. The Library of the Unwritten. This was a reread. The Archive of the Forgotten. This was also a reread. And The God of Lost Words by H.A. Hackworth. This is the complete trilogy. Butter Honey Pig Bread by Francesca Equiazzi. Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. Queer Love in Color by Jamal Jordan. A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. Monstrous Volume 7 by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. This was a reread and is also in the Monstrous comic book series. The Heart Forger by Rin Chupeco. This is the second book in the series. And The Shadow Glass by Rin Chupeco. This is the third book and finale in this trilogy. Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. This was a reread. The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This was also a reread. The Knight and the Butcherbird by Alex E. Harrow. This is a short story. And finally, we have made it to the 5-star reads. And before I talk about my favorite books of the year, I'm quickly going to mention the 5-star rereads. We have Pet by Akweke Emesi. You can read this as a standalone or as the first book in a little duology, and I love this one. I reread Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng to see whether I still love it, and I still love it. And I reread Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, the first book in the Simon Snow series, for reasons, and I love it. So with these 3 out of the way, we now talk about my top 9 books of the year. And I tried to rank them. It's really hard, and on a different day it would be like a different order, but I tried. And we're going to start off with number 9, which is The Sixth Death of the Saint, which is like an unbearable title if you have a little bit of a lisp. However, this is by Alex E. Harrow and it's a short story. It's actually my shortest book I read last year. However, I loved it. I freaking loved it. This is a short story that I think plays with the same idea as Alex E. Harrow's new book, The Everlasting, which I now really want to read really bad. In this short story, we follow a young girl who is orphaned and very ill. However, a saint appears to her and tells her to go outside and start serving her king. She becomes a very famous knight, winning a lot of battles for her king. And it's about the question of whether it's worth it. This also has some time fuckery in it, and it was just amazing. It was just what I wanted to read in that second, and I listened to it without pause while doing the dishes. It was lovely. Then we go to one of the longest books I have read last year, and that is Labyrinth Heart by M.A. Carrick. This is the final book in this trilogy, the Rook and Rose trilogy, and I really enjoyed this trilogy. I think that it really comes to life with the characters, and I just had the best time reading these books last year. And yeah, it's just really good. I started to care about these characters so much, and obviously with the final book, their storylines do come to an end, and there's a lot of feels involved, but there's also a lot of reveals about the world, about the magic, and yeah, just a lot of secrets you learn, and I thought it was just a fantastic ending to a series. Then we have Night Crawling by Layla Motley. This is a very hard read. This is a book about a young woman, pretty much still a girl, and she's trying to take care of her family, of her brother. I think that the parents, I don't know, maybe they were in jail or like they're not in the picture, and she's really trying to keep things together, and because of that she starts doing things that she shouldn't be doing, and it's about how she gets sucked into this world, and it's like really hard for her to do things still in her control. It's very hard to describe. It's a very hard read. I would recommend it if you're open for like literary fiction that is very hard hitting. I definitely was like gripping the book every second of reading it. Would I recommend this one? It's hard to recommend this one, but it's really good. Then we have Small Things Like These, again one of the shortest books I have read last year. This is by Claire Keegan. There's also a movie that I want to watch in the next couple of days. This one was very, very heartbreaking and touching in just so few pages. So with this one I would say definitely go read it, because yeah, it's just not a lot of effort and a great experience. I think this book is just so well crafted. We follow a man who is distributing like the coals in like the 80s in Ireland, and when he is bringing coals to this, what do you call it? It's not a monastery, where the nuns live with girls. He meets one of the girls and he realizes that something very terrible is going on there. And it's a cloister, right? Whatever. And so he wants to do something about it, but he has to struggle against like the restraints of his time. What I thought was so interesting in this book is that we get told the story from the point of view of a man. However, all the important people around him are women, and that has very much influenced the way he sees the world. And I thought that was so clever for this story. Then we have The Safekeep by Yale Vanderwooden. I probably butchered that completely and I'm very sorry about that. This book is messy. It's a messy, messy literary fiction. This is also a little bit historical, and we follow this woman who lives in her like family house, and she's like super possessive of it, even though it's not actually her house. Her brother inherited it, but he allows her to keep living there because she's just very unique. Let's just say that. And then one day the brother shows up with his current girlfriend, and he's someone who has a new girlfriend every week. And he basically says, hey, I have to travel for work and I want my girlfriend to live with you until I get back. And so these two women are kind of smooshed together in this house, and they hate each other, or rather our main character hates this girlfriend. And this book is about so much more, but I don't want to say it. It's something that I saw very early on in the book, but it is such an important topic, I think, something that is not talked about a lot. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it. And then we have The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. This is the first book in the Rook and Rose trilogy. And this one, I think, is even better than the third book, because instead of like wrapping everything up, this is opening everything up. This is when we meet these characters for the first time. We start exploring the world with them. And I think there is just something very special about a first book in a series when you start to dive into this world and you're still like full of wonder and questions, and you want to figure out like what this journey is going to be. Now, in the series, we follow a young woman who came from poverty. However, she's now a con artist and she's trying to infiltrate one of the aristocratic families of this area. However, she doesn't know that this family is actually poor now. They lost a lot of their money and wealth, and so they're really struggling. And the way that this new person shows up also brings potential for this family. However, this opens up so much more. Around the halfway point of the book, something happens, and then the stakes get so much higher, and you really start to see this world and what's like going on. And there's so much magic. There is kind of like dream magic. There is kind of tarot card magic. There is more of this like scientific symbol kind of magic, and it's just great. I love this book so much. I love this series so much. I love these characters so much. It's so good. Next up, we have The Unwomanly Face of War by Svetlana Alexievich. This is a non-fiction book that is already a little bit older, and the author, I think, also won the Nobel Prize for Literature. It says on the back. And in this one, the author went out to collect stories from women who fought in the Second World War in the Russian army. And this book, I think, is so special because the author really just wrote down the transcripts. She puts very little of her own commentary into the book, but she did a great job of structuring the interviews and bringing in a lot of different perspectives on these different topics. And I just really weirdly enjoyed reading this book, even though what is talked about in here is absolutely terrible. And especially in the beginning, it was so weird for me as a descendant of like Germans to read about these women and their thoughts about like the German soldiers they had to fight and who did terrible things to them, to their villages, their families, their countries. So it was definitely an experience, and I think this is a wonderful book about the female perspective on war, but also about the just terrible stuff that happened to these women even after the war, but also some of the men as well. It's just very heartbreaking, but it's like so important to keep this in mind and to read about these perspectives, in my opinion. And especially now with Russia starting wars and all of that, I think if these women were still alive, they would not go with that. They would not support that at all. And that's why I think this is such an important book. Okay, so that was third place. Now, my second place for the year is Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. This is the third book in the Tawny trilogy, and we are now 9 books into the Realm of the Elderlings. And at that point, I care so much about these characters, especially about my dear fool, which might be my favorite character ever in like any book. I love the fool so much. Now, as you could guess from the title Fool's Fate, this was a very heartbreaking book for me. There was a lot in here that literally made me cry. Like, I cried. If you want to watch my reading vlog for this series, you will see how I sobbed through parts of this book. And there is things in this book that finally happened that I've been waiting for many books. So it was everything. It was everything. If you haven't heard about the Realm of the Elderlings, for some weird reason, we start out the beginning of this, like the Farseer trilogy, with a boy called Fitz. He is the son of a prince, and one day his mother and grandfather basically give him over to the royal family. They're like, hey, this is your bastard, now deal with it. And so the king decides to make Fitz an assassin's apprentice. So he learns how to kill. And he also gets wrapped up in the politics and the intrigues of this court life. Then, when you finish Farseer, you have a time jump and then you get into Tawnyman, where Fitz is now a grown-up man, and we follow him on a very different journey with different adventures and intrigues and stuff, dangers as well. It's so good. It's so good. If you are not reading The Realm of the Elderlings, what are you doing? And now, my best book of 2025. And I hope no one who has watched my channel regularly is surprised by this one. It's The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I love this book. I love it so much. I actually already want to reread it. I love this. This is so special, and I have every once in a while a book where I say that this is what fantasy is meant to be to me. So it's just perfection. I wouldn't change a thing about this book. If I could give it 6 stars, I would give it 6 stars. It's just the best. And this is very hard to describe. My little prompt for it is always, you follow 2 warriors who are carrying the corpse of a goddess through a falling empire while falling in love with each other. And I think a lot of people don't realize that this is a love story. It might be the best love story I have read all year. I think about these 2 men all the time, the way that they both think they don't deserve to be loved and they don't deserve the happiness they feel because of each other. It's just so much great, awesome, loved it. This book is everything, and the writing style is very unique. A lot of this is written in second person narration, which is my favorite. I know some people hate it. I don't understand. I absolutely love second person narration, and everything about this book is just wonderful. The characters, the stakes, and you have this kind of frame story that is also very interesting, but then at the end, things start to kind of intersect as well, and that is done so beautifully. Simon Jimenez absolutely knew what he was doing in this book, and it's perfect. It's just perfect. And with that, we have made it through all the books that I have read in 2025. Now, to be honest, I don't think I will ever read that many books again in a year. At least I don't plan to, but we'll see what happens. I had a good time reading this year. Taking this all together, my average rating would be 3.94 stars, which is just a little bit worse than last year when I had 3.97 stars. So I'm very happy with that. I think I definitely know my taste very well. And a lot of the weaker books this year have been books that either have been gifts or that have just been on my shelves for over 10 years and I just lost interest in them. But with all the new books I pick up, I think I have a pretty good track record of choosing the ones I will actually end up liking. So that is very great. Now, one thing I want to hear in the comments, what were your top 3 books of the year? Only 3, let me know. And yeah, with that, I think I will let you go. If you're interested to hear more of my thoughts on these books, I do have monthly wrap-ups as well as a lot of reading vlogs for series or for individual books. So there you will hear all of my thoughts and fresh off the press, because my memory is really bad. So with some of these books, I don't even really remember a lot anymore. So thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely year of 2026, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.